Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore Positive. Hope you're tuning us in on your radio dial and setting a spot for us as we drive around the Beltway. We're getting pretty good at this Ravens thing. It's Pittsburgh week here again. We are going to be out doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour in 6 different locations, all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I'll have Ravens scratch-offs to give away. Also going to have the candy cane, pepperminty, smelly stuff that I always wanted to be Santa Claus and give away candy canes, so this is the closest thing I can do. So it all begins at Fadley's on Wednesday, Deep Pasquale's on Thursday, Honey's and Alethorpe on Friday. Following week, we're going to be at Costas doing our special rock and roll Christmas edition on the 18th, and then on the 19th, we're all over the place. And I'm going to Planet Fitness on the 21st, but on the 19th we return. We're going upscale, Gertrude's and the BMA with Dan Rodrigues and cousin John Shields, and I got great guests coming to all of these things, so it's going to be fun. And the football, I think, win or lose this Sunday, is going to be interesting. And if nothing else, the WNST Tech Service, brought to you by Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy, keeps Luke Jones very much on his toes on a Wednesday evening when the Ravens give a 3-year deal to Mark Andrews, which can't say I saw that coming, can't say you saw that coming, and I can't say that anywhere in our archives, even for the AI that's listening to everything we do, that you and I have ever said contract extension for Mark Andrews in any breath at any point before he dropped the ball in Buffalo and ran out the back door and getting his USAA commercials and whatever. I don't say I'm stunned, but I'm close to very, very surprised. That's all.
Yeah, I think stunned would be the wrong word. I know I've at least opined once or twice in the last couple months about the possibility, right? If for no other reason, not so much that Mark Andrews has had this great year statistically, because he hasn't. I mean, no one on this offense has had a great year statistically. Certainly no one you can really point to and say, okay, that guy's gotten way better. I mean, Zay Flowers is having a good year, right? I mean, he's kind of been the entire passing game. I mean, Andrews a little bit, and then it's kind of been all over the place, right? I mean, we've talked about that a lot. We've talked a lot about that even more recently with Lamar Jackson himself struggling. But I think because of what's happened with Isaiah Likely, I mean, there was scuttlebutt over the summer that they were talking that, the Ravens had even given him, offered him what they thought was a good deal. I mean, I don't know the specific numbers, but would have been a really good deal relative to what his production had been through his first 3 years. And he wanted more than that, which is not surprising, right? I mean, you're talking about someone who's a 4th-round pick and certainly has flashed, I don't know, top 5 tight end ability. That's ambitious, but at least top 10 ability he's flashed. And knowing that he's 4.5 years younger than Mark Andrews, and knowing Andrews was in the last year of his deal, is 30 years old, has been hurt some. I think we all assume that if they were going to extend one or the other, it was going to be Likely. And I mean, let's face it. I mean, Eric DeCosta early in the offseason, when he was asked about Mark Andrews' future over and over, he was very non-committal. He was very complimentary as far as what he had done, but certainly did not say definitively until really after the draft that, yeah, Mark Andrews is going to be here. We anticipate him being here. It was very much an open-ended, non-committal kind of way of talking about him. And we know obviously a trade never came to fruition. And you're saying, okay, well, they're going to go into their contract year and we're going to see if someone gets signed. We're going to see how they play. And the franchise tag could be in play for Likely if he has a big year and they're far apart going into free agency. But yeah, to sit here and say that I thought a couple months ago that the Ravens would be announcing a 3-year, $39.3 million contract extension that includes $26 million guaranteed per Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. I'm surprised by that. It's not so much that I hate the idea of them extending Mark Andrews because, I mean, he's still an important player in their offense. He's still someone that Lamar Jackson trusts. And I think that is an element to this story that should not be ignored when you're talking about your franchise quarterback and the guy that's been his security blanket from the time they both entered the league. So I think that is a significant portion of this. That, not saying that this was a mandate from Lamar, that would be, too strong, but all things being equal, of course, Lamar's going to like Mark Andrews being around for a couple more years. That said, he also has a friendship with Isaiah Likely. I mean, those two hang out outside of football for at least during the season. So, it's certainly interesting. Is it a little rich for what my preference would have been? Probably. If you had asked me a month ago and said, okay, if you're not going to do anything with Likely, what would you feel comfortable with Mark Andrews? And I probably would have said somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years, 20, 2 years, 22, 10 or 11 million per year. This is 13. Um, we're going to see how it plays out. I mean, I think we have to see what the year by year breakdown is, but it feels when you say 26 million guaranteed, a 3-year deal, 39.3, that sounds like a 2-year deal with the team option for a third year, basically. So we're going to see how it plays out. But that said, I mean, we are talking about someone who is going to be 31 next year. His production has dipped the last couple of years. Touchdowns were really what buoyed his production the second half of last year. He's a touchdown machine. He's still very valuable in the red zone. But as is always the case with these kind of deals, you're trying to project out what someone's going to do over the course of the deal, not what he's done in the past. And that's where I look at this and say, okay, back at the start of 21, that's when they signed him to that 4-year, $56 million contract. That was a home run of a contract. I mean, he was wildly productive in 21. I mean, 21, maybe the greatest receiving season that a Raven has ever had when you look at what he did. Was still very productive in 22 until the ankle injury in 23. He was very productive. Like I said, last year, he was a touchdown machine, even as the volume dissipated somewhat. But you are counting on someone to remain pretty darn productive the next couple of years. And okay, he was a $14 million average annual value over the course of this deal that's expiring. It's 13 now. With inflation, with the cap increasing, it's less, right? And it's not just $1 million less per year. It's more than that when you think in terms of inflation. And there are going to be some other younger tight ends that are going to get deals. I mean, we're going to see what Likely's going to get. I would think he's probably someone who maybe he takes a 1-year deal somewhere where he can build up his market value and hit free agency the next year. We'll see how that plays out. But you wouldn't expect the Ravens, with where they are with their cap, with what they need to do with Lamar Jackson, with what they need to do with their offensive line and maybe their defensive line and all of that, you wouldn't think that they're going to extend 2 tight ends. I mean, if there's going to be a second, maybe it's Charlie Kolar at a lower rate than what either of those two were always going to get. But this is definitely surprising as far as what the value was. But at the same time, we're talking about someone who's the all-time leader in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns for this franchise. This is a Ring of Honor guy, regardless of what happened in Buffalo, regardless of not living up to what you'd like him to be in the postseason, which you can say about just about everyone on this current iteration of the Ravens. So definitely surprising, but another factor I will throw in there that does help from a cap standpoint, because you sign it now, whatever his signing bonus is going to be, you can actually apply that to the rest of 2025 as well. So that will help the cap numbers for the future years a little bit as well. And keep in mind, remember, they had all that cap space that they had ahead of the trade deadline. They didn't make a monster move, right? They didn't go out and get Quinnen Williams or someone like that, where it was going to be a big number. So they had some cap space that could absorb this extension a little bit as well. So we're going to see. I'm not going to say I'm over the moon about the dollars that they're spending here. That said, this has been someone that's been really dependable, really productive, has been really important to their offense. Lamar Jackson still trusts him to this day. As I said, that's still a part of this story that I think shouldn't be overlooked or dismissed. I mean, it's not, certainly wouldn't put this in the same category as the Odell Beckham deal, which felt like a Lamar tax all along, right? I don't think this is that, but at the same time, you're talking about someone that you're now counting on to be really productive on the other side of 30 the next couple of years. So we're going to see how that plays out. But it does crystallize what the tight end position looks like for 2026 a little bit, when going into this year, Andrews, Likely, Kolar, and even throw Pat Ricard in there, all pending free agents. So they at least know that Mark Andrews is going to be a Raven here over the next couple of years.
Yeah, this is such a market deal, right? This is
Yeah.
Eric looking and saying, who's going to be here next year? What do I need to use
Yeah.
draft capital on? Where are we going to go in the free agent market? What's likely really going to get? And are we likely going to get him? Is somebody else going to just wow him and we'd be better off staying with what we've got? And I go back to your first point, which was your instinct in this, which is always dead on when it comes to these things because you're in the locker room. Um, and you and I get together and chat. And I think the instinct on this is Lamar's the operation. Let's keep Lamar happy. If Lamar wants Odell Beckham, we'll give him Odell Beckham. We'll give him, I mean, this like if this keeps Lamar grounded and Andrews is also a guy that isn't trying to be a stat freak about his role in the offense. He clearly likes it here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of money. They overpaid him. I'll give you. I mean, I wonder if his agent was as shocked as we were when
Yeah.
DeCosta called and said, "Hey, let's talk long-term deal." Really?
Yeah. I mean,
You got the right guy? I'm Mark Andrews' agent. Like I don't. Stunned is stunned is a word I don't use much. Stunned is jaw dropping. There are things that would stun me. Um, but this isn't stunning, but I take 100,000 foot look and I say, well, Eric's reading the tea leaves. He's always the smartest guy in the room.
yeah.
He's prepared. He likes this deal. John likes this deal, but I think Lamar likes this deal.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think what's interesting, and you kind of alluded to it just now. I would have been interested to see what the market would look like for Mark Andrews, knowing that the production has dipped quite a bit from the last couple over the last couple of years, especially this year. I mean, not that he's had a horrible year, but I mean, look at his numbers. I mean, he's not putting up. Certainly, this isn't 2021 for him. Like let's state the obvious. But you think about it through the looking through the lens of the Ravens were open to dealing him this offseason. That was obvious, right? I mean, that was very obvious. Eric DeCosta had multiple opportunities, whether you're talking about the combine, the pre-draft luncheon. I mean, it wasn't until after the dust had settled and the draft was over that at that point he said, yeah, I fully expect Mark Andrews to be a Raven this year, right? So if there wasn't a team calling the Ravens at their asking price, and look, I mean, we're not talking about that they were going to get a first round pick. I mean, no one was going to talking in those terms. At the same time, it made little sense if a team was only going to ask for, only going to offer up a fifth round pick, right? Because at the very least, you'd say, well, you'd get at least that for a comp pick for him, and then you'd have him for 2025. So, but that said, considering it felt like interest in him was relatively lukewarm, at least at whatever the Ravens were asking for in return. That's where you do look at this and say, would he get 13 million on the open market? I mean, you look at the tight ends in the league
We
right
can get
now.
3 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, it's when you look at how it's probably
That's
structured.
pushing paper.
I'm guessing it's 2 years and then it's a team option for the third, right? And kind of like the Derrick Henry extension. It's 2 years and then you have a team option. But you look at the guarantee, 26 million. I mean, that's the first 2 years of the deal essentially guaranteed. And obviously there'll be a signing bonus that will be part of that structure. But you look at the rest of the league, and I'm looking at these numbers overthecap.com, which has all the contract stuff. George Kittle right now is top of market in terms of average annual value. He's making just over 19 million per year. Trey McBride, the great tight end for the Cardinals, 19 million a year. Kelsey's still at 17. Of course, his future very much up in the air after this season. TJ Hawkinson, who's been, part of the death valley that is the Vikings pass catchers at this point with their quarterback situation. But, he's put up no numbers this year and he's at 16.5.
The Raiders guy is going to get a lot of money, right?
So, well, yeah, I mean, Bowers is the best. I mean, he's the cream of the crop. I mean, he's going to be the top of market once the time comes for him. So, but that said, I mean, you're still talking about someone who offers a high floor. Other than the ankle injury 2 years ago, has been pretty durable. He's been more banged up and sore, and been on the injury report at times over the last couple of years. But other than that specific stretch, that specific injury, it's not like he's missed a ton of games. So you're counting on that to continue. And like I said, as the cap continues to go up, this is a way different 13.1 million per year for 3 years in 2026 and beyond is way different than 14 million a year in 2022 when this current deal started. So there's inflation at work here, but as it stands, you're still talking about someone who's in the space of, top 5, top 6, top 7 kind of money for in terms of AAV. So it's definitely, like I said, the number was higher than I would give. That said, you're in a position where your entire room is full of pending free agents. You've got to do a lot of other business, including extending your quarterback.
Yeah, to your point, it's one less thing I got to worry about next year. It's one thing that keeps Lamar happy. Yeah. We know what we're getting in Mark Andrews for whatever that is, right?
Yeah, you just need him to continue to be productive, right? I mean, you don't want this to be a case where, and a lot of people will point to Kelsey and say, look, Kelsey's 36 or 37. I mean, off the top of my head. That said, that's the exception, right? You can't treat every player, every tight end is going to age like that. Todd Heap, I think, was 30 when the Ravens said goodbye to him, and Todd Heap played one more year and then he was done, right? I mean, so that's where you look at this.
It's a tough job,
I mean, and that's part of it too. I mean, Todd Heap, my goodness, God bless him, the number of nothing personal, but the hospital balls that Kyle Bowler was throwing up to him early in his career. I mean, let's face it, he took a beating over the course of his career. It's a great player, but took a beating. And, Mark Andrews has gone over the middle quite a bit as well. It's a different game in 2025 than it was 15, 20 years ago, of course, but it's still difficult. So we're going to see. Again, is it an overpay in my humble opinion? Yeah. That said, you also weren't going to re-sign him for $5 million a year either. Like, let's be realistic. And, so there would have been a market for him, but I do think the Lamar Jackson factor here is something that should be acknowledged as you're entering an offseason where you're going to have to get something done with him. So if this is something you can point to that's going to keep him happy, you don't have to be in this, okay, what are we going to do? Andrews or Likely or Andrews? Are we going to keep either of them? Are we going to have to go draft a tight end in the first or second round? So
what's Likely going to get, right? That was tough. Sort of the longer form version of like, it felt like they wanted to go in that direction. It's felt that way for 18 months.
But he's had a bad year. I mean, like, he was hurt, and look at his production. I mean, he's.
And I guess Eric reaches to his people and says, hey, do you want 2 years at 14 million? And his people laugh at that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
literally, I don't know. That's probably not far off, right?
It's probably not too far off. I mean, whether it was 14, whether it was 13.
But nobody's given Isaiah Likely 3 years and $50 million on potential, right?
I mean, not after this year, you wouldn't think. I mean, last year, and even the second half of 23, when he was filling in for Andrews, over the second half of the season and put up really good numbers. But no, he hasn't done it for a full season. And I mean, you look at this year, in 9 games, he has 18 catches for 223 yards. Doesn't have a touchdown. Now, he should have had a touchdown on Thanksgiving night, but, well, he was sloppy with the ball at the goal line and it cost him. So that said, the skeptic in me does look at that and say, okay, if you're not going to pay Isaiah Likely, I'm fine. That doesn't mean you absolutely need to pay Mark Andrews whatever he wants, but they deem that to be a number they were comfortable with, and we're going to see how it plays out. And like I said, if it's something that keeps the waters as calm as possible as you're entering this offseason, knowing you need to get a deal done with your franchise quarterback, knowing how difficult that was the last time around, because of a lack of an agent and negotiations and just how that can be challenging, and understanding that, assuming the Ravens aren't going to make a magical run here and win the Super Bowl, you've got a whole lot you need to address with this roster in terms of your offensive line. Tyler Linderbaum's going to be a free agent. So what's going to happen there? Are you prepared to make him the highest paid center? If not, are you going to be able to get something done with him, or are you looking at losing him? And then you're talking about all 3 interior line positions being a major question mark. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of tentacles that, I mean, you and I have talked about. And once this season comes to an end, we're going to dive, we'll be eyeball deep in talking about all that, because it's a lot. I mean, they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of holes in this football team. I think that's evident when we're talking about them being 6-6 going into week 14. But even whether they're playing for the division lead or not, that's not the standard that's been set around here in recent years. So it is interesting. but they deemed Mark Andrews to be too valuable to lose, especially when you're looking at it, trying to compare what's happened with Likely this year and their confidence in being able to get something done with him, whether they wanted to get something done with him because of just the contract year not going the way that anyone wanted it to go for him. So they decided to go in this direction. And, at the very least, that's something they can check off, right? I mean, they probably will need to look to draft a tight end as you get deeper into the draft, right?
Well, I mean, Kohler would be, they've gotten nice mileage out of that for what that is, right?
Sure. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because that's the other part of this. If you're going to be a cynic, if you're going to be skeptical, if you're going to look at this with a little more scrutiny, the Ravens, of all the different positions you could talk about, right? Tight end is a position where they have found some really good players, not necessarily in the first round. I mean, Andrews was a third round pick. I mean, we forget Hayden Hurst was the first round pick that year. And Andrews was, I mean, to say far and away is an understatement as far as how
right
much
around the time I
was.
fell asleep, as I remember. Yeah.
but with Andrews, I mean, you look at him, you look at Dennis Pitta, who was a fourth round pick, right? I mean, Kohler and Likely were fourth round picks. I mean, so you could certainly make the argument and say, did you necessarily need to re-sign one of those guys, or do you say, hey, we're confident in our ability to go find someone? Maybe we'd sign a veteran. That would be a stopgap, and we'll go draft a tight end. It's a way they could have gone because you only have so many cap dollars, right? You only have so many resources, and you've got to do something with that offensive line, right? I mean, whether you're going to re-sign Linderbaum or not, they still have work to do on that offensive line. That's obvious. So I was very interested, surprised at the number, certainly surprised that they were going to re-sign him because I'm not going to sit here and say that I expected that. I mean, I think we were all assuming this was going to be Andrew's swan song, but as this year turned to October and November, and now we're into December, and seeing the kind of year Likely has had, that's where you look at it and say, are you really going to get something done there that you're going to feel comfortable with, that he would have felt comfortable with, quite frankly. So maybe this was the path of least resistance to say, hey, even if Mark Andrews isn't going to be the guy he was in 2019, 20, 21, and 22, he's still a heck of an option in the red zone. He's someone that our franchise quarterback still trusts and still likes and still goes to in third down, red zone, when got to have it kind of situations. You still see the ball going his way quite a bit. So you say, even if we're paying a little more than we'd like to, we still feel that this is an investment that we can put our head on the pillow and still feel good about for the next couple of years. We'll find out if that proves to be the case, or we'll find out if there's some buyer's remorse a couple of years from now. But they've got this done, and it's one of many free agents that we won't be talking about him, but we'll be talking about some of these other guys, and again, trying to figure out exactly what their cap's going to look like, knowing they've got to get something done with Lamar Jackson.
He's Luke Jones. He's Baltimore Luke. We don't just talk about off-season-ish in the middle of the season. It's Pittsburgh week here, dude. So, let's get to that. And I've had long conversations this week. My buddy Robbie Ince McCaskey's up in Pittsburgh. He covered the Pirates for years and years, but he considers himself a Steelers fan and a media guy. And he's into all the aspects of that in a Pittsburgh town. And Will Graves and I did 45 minutes, and he was just phenomenal. Your boy Aaron Schatz sends his nerd love to you. And we tried to get down to the DVOA and the science of trench play and evaluating offensive lines, which is really at the heart of where he is. And that's really at the heart of this football game this week, right?
It has to be, right? We've talked about the Ravens offensive line all year long. We've talked quite a bit about the defensive line. It's been better, right? The pass rush up until Thursday night against Cincinnati, the pass rush had been trending in a better direction. It's still not where I think anyone would like it to be in terms of inspiring a ton of confidence for January. But it's better. I mean, Travis Jones has played well. They've got, Draymond Jones has been a nice addition for them. And I think Mike Green has taken some positive steps. I'm not ready to deem him a future Pro Bowl player just yet, but I think he's improved, from the beginning of the season till the last month or so. But man, you look at that Pittsburgh team right now, and you and I spent so much time lamenting how bad the Ravens were on Thursday night. And 5 turnovers speaks for itself, right? I mean, you're not going to beat anyone when you turn the ball over 5 times. And it was disappointing how the defense couldn't get off the field on third down in the second half. But fast forward to what happened in Pittsburgh on Sunday. And I mean, it started last year when the Ravens were able to run all over them in first the December game in Baltimore, and then certainly that playoff game. I mean, Pittsburgh talked about this. They went into the offseason kind of using what happened to them in that Ravens playoff loss as a compass point. I mean, it's why they drafted Derek Harmon in the first round, who's not going to play this week, who did not play against Buffalo. And I mean, the Bills ran for 250 yards on them. I mean,
well, they ran the same play over and over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, that was a not Heinz Field anymore, but the place formerly known as Heinz Field. That was a stadium record by an opponent against them. And if you're the Ravens, you're looking at that and saying, all right, where's Lamar's health? I mean, he practiced on Wednesday, but he was limited, still listed with an ankle. So there's still, you're hoping he's healthier coming out of this mini bye. He looked better running the ball in the limited sample that we saw against Cincinnati. He certainly moved better, but we know that that's not right. And we certainly know their passing game is anything but firing on all cylinders right now. So you see what Buffalo did. And to me, I don't want to oversimplify this, but it's Derrick Henry. It's Keaton Mitchell this week. It's running the ball. Well, Lamar Jackson, if he can do it a little bit, at least you're trying to run the ball down their throats. You're trying to embarrass them in the same way that Buffalo did. I mean, the term I used with you when we talked about it a few days ago was, I mean, the Bills stole their manhood on Sunday. I mean, that was embarrassing. I mean, that's embarrassing for any team.
Well, that's why when I talked to Will Graves about this at length, I'm like, I don't expect TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and Mike Tomlin and Jalen Ramsey to get off the plane here and feel about rolling over. And the Ravens better beware a fourth time that the Steelers fans are the ones the last 3 minutes of the game in the stadium, and the stadium's empty again, because there's been a whole lot of that here this year when things have gone wrong, including on Thanksgiving night. I talked to Leonard Raskin about not getting his gravy boat the other night as well. But by the way, they're $15 on the internet. I would say my gut on all of this is everything you've just said that would make Cameron Hayward's father cry. He used to do my show, Ironhead, back in the day. Made a great commercial. He was a good guy. That these guys had their manhood taken away by the Buffalo Bills the other day. They're not going to allow the season to be taken away. And, Graves is even like, Tomlin can still look at his locker room and say, we're in first place. You know what I mean? Like, let's not act like we're going in there and we're the Cleveland Browns and the season's over. Far from it. And as bad as it was, this is the NFL. As bad as it was last week, horrible. The Bengals were horrible till they showed up here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the Jets, horrible till the Ravens have them in a game 2 weeks ago. I mean, there's nothing about this operation here out in Owings Mills that you run with that gives me any confidence that this is the week they're going to find themselves and lay the hammer down because Pittsburgh has a leaky defense. Like, okay, go exploit it. Go be up 31-10 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And then we're here on Monday like, oh boy, here they come. Now they're coming. They're going to go to Cincinnati. They're going to hold their water. New England's going to come in here and they're going to bloody New England's nose and make this young man feel bad about himself. And then they're going to go to Green Bay and they're going to wrestle with them, but maybe lose by a field goal and it'll be cold. And then they still got to go to Pittsburgh and they got to win and they'll come to life and the running game will happen and they'll do all the things. And then we can talk about like where they are in January. But right now, until I see some scope of something that looks like that, they're a 6-6 team that somehow is a 5.5 point favorite just because the perception is the Steelers suck more. In 2 6-6 teams, I'm not buying that because I'm not buying into the Steelers. You're not going to convince me until I see them get their ass kicked here again on Sunday and get run on again. And Derrick Henry has 218 yards again without Lamar being able to run. You're not going to convince me that this is not a game that I would take the Steelers in the points and say this is going to be a ugly, awful, close game, and it's going to be a pride game, and the Steelers aren't going to allow that to happen again. Not here. I just think they're going to fight
Maybe.
harder. Whether they win or not remains to
Yeah.
be seen. Whether, Likely keeps the ball when he goes in the end zone and Zay Flowers doesn't extend his arm the whole way. And like if things go right for them and don't go wrong, 5 turnovers kind of wrong or flags wrong or offensive line getting pushed around wrong. But I throw last week completely, might as well have been last century to me, based on what I've seen from these two teams over 30 years, and specifically this group of humans. This isn't Roethlisberger and Hines Ward and Joe Flacco and Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. This is a bunch of guys other than Aaron Rodgers. If my dad were here, he'd say they ain't done shit. Like none of these guys, MVP this, money that, contract this. Derrick Henry didn't have a ring. D Hop, all these guys.
No one on Pittsburgh does either, right?
Aaron Rodgers.
Well,
and they're all great players. Marlon Humphrey thinks he's great. Just ask his accountants. Ask any of their accountants how great they are. Roquan Smith, he's great. Ronnie Stanley, heroic, great. Mark Andrews just got 39 million more. So these guys are all in the hall of they think they're really good. Same thing with Hayward, TJ Watt, who's been keeping up with his brother, Ramsey, who's a loudmouth, just all the way around. Metcalf, who's in the hall of possibilities. All of these guys, this is a big football game here this week. I mean, it just really, really is. And because of what my buddy Jimmy Schwartz, and by the way, we're going to be in Halethorpe next week. He never claimed Halethorpe. He always said Lansdowne, but I don't know the difference over there. Baltimore Highlands for all of you. We'll be at Honey's next Friday doing the Crab Cake Tour. Schwartz used to say, "We got some RA." I'd say, "What's RA?" He'd say, "Red ass. We got our ass kicked last week, and everybody comes to work to make sure that doesn't happen again next week." And Steelers got the game tape the last week too. And no way they're coming in here and going to get pushed around like that.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. Not by this group either. This isn't a group that's pushed anybody around. So that's where I have to say to the Pittsburgh people, I've seen our team play too.
Yeah, and I think for me, where I do take a little more pause on Pittsburgh is how they finished last year as well, when they fell apart completely last year. And I mean, the Ravens ran all over them twice late in the season, and they ended up losing the division lead, and the Ravens win the division. The Ravens punk them in the playoffs. But that was last year, right? And you and I have talked about it. Marlon Humphrey, since you brought him up, and I know he's a different side of the ball as we've kind of focused in here on the Steelers defense and the Ravens running the ball, wanting to run the ball, their offense wanting to get on track. But Humphrey, he was pretty blunt about it, talking in the locker room.
Well, he's a Bama guy, and he's a loudmouth, and he's an arrogant guy, and he didn't like losing. Losing's not part of what he thinks his DNA speaks to, or his father's for that matter.
But where I will give him some credit is he will speak without a filter. He's more inclined to speak without a filter than a lot of his teammates in this current iteration of the Ravens.
Oh, it's self-evaluative on me. It's on us. I mean, by the way, Marvin Lewis specifically this week on the show stepped out and said he loved those Steelers press conferences. And I'm like, why? I was pretty flippant. And he's like, because they talked about it being on them.
Yeah.
He's like, TJ Watt said, this is on me and us and we. And Aaron Rodgers, this is on me and us and we. And I'll at least say with Humphrey, and I've stood next to the locker back when I was a real media member and was allowed to breathe their air, that I remember him after that Chargers game, or maybe it was the Titans game. So then my wife got sick. That's all I remember. But he said, we choked. The
Titans game, yeah.
The Titans game.
I remember that quote vividly because
and that's a long time ago, and they haven't pissed a drop since, and they've blown an AFC championship game at home, and they've blown lots of playoff games where coulda, shoulda, woulda, mighta, and like all that, aside from Snoop Huntley playing games. I'm talking about like things that they're going to look back on when they're counting all of their money later in life, like my boys are all coming in this weekend, the Super Bowl 35 guys are all in this weekend. They don't have to look back and say ifs and buts and candies and nuts, and if Ray didn't take the ball away from Eddie George, and if Goose didn't fall on this, or any of those things. They went and did it, and they get to talk about it. Sure. That's something that none of these cats here this week know anything about, and they should probably honor that. When they see Keaton Mitchell's daddy and realized he made one of the biggest plays in the history of the franchise because it led to them winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, what I was getting ready to say, though, I mean, Marlon Humphrey said, look, talk's cheap at this point. We need to go do it. We haven't played great complementary football all three phases all year. We think we're a really good team on paper. People have said they think we're a really good team on paper. That's been said a lot. It's time to go be a good team then. We need to go do it on Sunday.
My God, he wrote my column for me this week. It sounds to me.
I mean,
right?
It's that's what he said, and
that's just what I just said. Go be a good team. Go beat New England. Go give Green Bay a run. Go give anybody some confidence that the next time we see the Steelers 4 weeks from now, it's going to be a better team than the one where you kicked their ass this week.
Well, and he made the point that if you can't get up for this one, I think it shows something about your character, and I think that applies for both these teams right now. We haven't spent a whole lot of time. You and I have talked about this game for several minutes now. I mean, Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, especially Mike Tomlin this week, but John Harbaugh somewhat, and certainly earlier this year when they were 1-5. These two head coaches are being talked about in different terms, and especially Tomlin this week. I mean, when you have James Harrison on a podcast talking about whether it's time to move on from Mike Tomlin, when you have Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, these are guys that won a Super Bowl a Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin, and they're acknowledging maybe it's not, maybe this is coming to an end. Maybe this has run its course. Maybe this is Andy Reid in Philadelphia back in 2012. And this is something that's, you and I've talked about it in lesser terms, but it's been talked about in recent years. I mean, look, we're talking about, as much as you just spelled out the Ravens' lack of postseason success, it's even worse for Pittsburgh over the last decade. I mean, it's been 9 years since they have a playoff win, let alone going to the AFC Championship or hosting an AFC Championship.
This is the longest time they've gone without a playoff win since the Immaculate Reception.
Yeah, so when you're talking in those terms, no matter how accomplished either of these head coaches they are, I mean, you start to ask questions, and especially in this day and age, right, where everyone's attention span, everyone's got a short memory, right? Everyone has a voice on social media, good or bad, all of that it's, it catches on like wildfire. I mean, look at how viral those videos went of their fans booing Renegade. I mean, that's how bad it got on Sunday in Pittsburgh.
By the way, I reached to Tommy Shaw to have him on the show because I'm like, I'll lay down the law right now. We don't boo Renegade in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yeah, but I mean, it speaks to, what you were just talking about in terms of the Ravens needing to man up. I mean, they're having those same conversations in Pittsburgh right now, and we are entering a period of time. And I'm not saying that this, or certainly week 18 will be the end, but we are getting much closer to the end for both of these head coaches than the beginning, right? I mean, they're not going to coach forever, right? I mean, even if either one of these guys ends up going on a run.
Hey, Marvin said that too. There will be an end. We all know that, right?
So that's where this is interesting, that, that both of these head coaches are facing more fire now than they did for years and years and years, right? When you're, in Mike Tomlin's case, I mean, he won a Super Bowl in his second year, right? John Harbaugh won a Super Bowl in his fifth season, right? So, these guys are now approaching 2 decades as the head coach of their respective teams. So that's where I think on Sunday, it's also, who's going to man up for their head coach? These players hear the noise. I mean, on Wednesday alone, and look, I'm not going to give plugs to talking head shows. I mean, for every good segment, you'll hear 6 segments where you're wanting to turn the channel, right? Because it's just the most ridiculous hot take kind of stuff. But ESPN had a lengthy segment talking about Mike Tomlin and his future. And I think it was FS1 had a lengthy segment talking about John Harbaugh in very similar terms, right? I mean, that's a really weird space when we're talking about two teams that are playing for sole possession of first place on Sunday. But that's the reality when they're both 6-6 and they're playing in a lousy division. So,
and the reality is one of them better win the division. It better not be the Bengals. And I told Will
right,
Graves that too. And like that Bengals game this weekend with the Bills, I mean, you start to look at their schedule, look at this and that, and the Ravens going in there and what happens this week. And I mean, there's no margin for error for any of these teams. And again, I keep going back to the Steelers were built to be mediocre. The Ravens were built to win the Super Bowl. And if the Ravens inch into a home game and lose to his brother, which is the way it would line up right now, which is weird, like the Chargers would come in here or whatever, and they get their lunch money stolen again, and you're at Marlon Humphrey's locker again after they've lost somehow 31-27 and turned the ball over 3 times and had trouble running the ball and couldn't hold a lead at home in the cold in January. The day after that, John Harbaugh doesn't smell any better than he smelled at 1-5.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of odd about this game, because obviously it's a big game. I mean, you just mentioned Aaron Schatz. I mean, I know he put out on social media earlier this week. I mean, this is like the biggest game of the year in terms of a probability swing for teams making the playoffs, right? When you look at what the Ravens percentage like, and again, these are probabilities, they're numbers. I mean, doesn't mean anything. If you win the next one and then lose your last 4, then yeah, you're going to be out of the playoffs, right? But just knowing that the stakes involved for both these teams. That said, you just said it. I mean, the goal here isn't just to sneak into the playoffs and then you're happy to be there and okay, you recovered from 1-5. I mean, that wasn't the goal going into the season. And even in Pittsburgh, I will say this, outside expectations. And I was actually having a conversation with someone in the Ravens media room earlier this week, that it is interesting to see how Tomlin's being spoken about and the Steelers are being spoken about, when in reality, did anyone really think they were going to be that good this year? Like, they've kind of been exactly what I thought they would probably
100%. And that's only because Rodgers is still standing upright.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like he's been great. I would say this, their defense has been disappointing. There's no doubt. I mean, considering how high priced that defense is, that defense stinks. I mean, it's for how much those guys are getting paid, they have wildly underperformed. And the Ravens certainly underperformed big time the first 6 weeks of the season, has been better since then, though still has its
all that being said, how many guys on the Ravens are earning their money this year, playing to their contract number? Whoa.
I mean,
whoa.
Not a ton of them,
you're
right?
sitting here spitting at Pittsburgh about that. Hey, hold the mirror up in here, because I'm looking around and I'm like,
I don't play. I can criticize the Ravens all year. We're talking about Pittsburgh too. I mean, so it's, if the Ravens,
but everybody's down on the Steelers, nobody's down on the Ravens.
Oh, there's plenty of people down on the Ravens. I don't agree.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think it always feels locally, to me like we're always waiting for the sun to shine and everything I just laid out, which is, hey, they're going to catch fire. They're going to kick New England's ass. They're going to start to look like they're going to round into form.
Oh, I think
because they have all of this talent. And then you and I come here every week and say they get their ass kicked at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball all day long and have for 12 weeks. And that's really hard to overcome, like it just is.
Well, the reason I would perceive the Ravens to be different, because the Ravens have more talent on both sides of the ball.
Correct.
Right? I mean, Pittsburgh on the offensive side of the ball, no one wants Aaron Rodgers at this point. The Steelers were the only team who wanted Aaron Rodgers this offseason. What? I guess maybe he had a cup of coffee and a conversation with the Vikings at some point in time, right? Whereas Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. It's why people aren't counting out Kansas City, despite the fact that they're in deep what, because they're not in a division that they can win at this point. So they're completely dependent on going on a run to win a wild card, because they're not going to catch the Broncos at this point in time. But I think, and this still goes back to the priors, and I've talked about that. I mean, look how many people were picking the Ravens to win the Super Bowl before the year. That's a heck of it. Those kind of expectations and that kind of perception, that's a tough thing for people to let go. So I'll hedge a little bit on what I just said. I think nationally, the Ravens are perceived much better. Yes. And because even when they were 1-5, how many people nationally were saying, well, they're just injured right now?
Well, it's even worse now. They were 1-5. They were horrible. Now they're 6-6. They got their ass kicked on Thanksgiving. And you know what? This is my point. We're all still sitting here believing They're a touchdown favorite this week. They're going to win. They're going to find a way. They're going to play that playoff game. They're going to have that home game in January. And that day, the lights are going to go on because it's Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry and D-Hop and like all of the, like they're going to come off the bus that day. And for a month, they're going to be world beaters. The Kansas City's done that a couple times, right?
Yeah,
literally scuffled through. And I still think smart football people, and I haven't had anybody that doesn't believe it's possible at the least, right? Because of the pedigree of these players, but we're all waiting for it to happen. But nobody believes that can happen for Pittsburgh at all.
Yeah, well, and
at all.
But that goes back to like what was their ceiling to begin with, right? I mean, you had a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you have
if somehow the Steelers are the team getting their ass kicked at home in a playoff game the second week of January, things have gone very well for them.
Sure.
But, and if the Ravens just get there, there's no exhale here for anyone for all the reasons we talked about, all the nude ring fingers, right? Like literally,
sure.
This is a whole different mountain for the Ravens than it is for the Steelers. But all that being said, it's 3 hours of football on Sunday, and I'm not just thinking the Steelers are rolling over here. And I think if the Steelers win this football game, it's hell around here Monday, right?
It should be because, if we're talking about it on paper, because we can't talk about the game until it happens, right? I mean, we could talk about what we think is going to happen. We can talk about what could happen, what we don't think will happen. But yeah, they have to go out and play. And we've seen that act a lot, right? Until the Ravens took it to Pittsburgh in December last year and then obviously whipped them in that playoff game. I mean, we know what the narrative was of this era of the Ravens, where the Ravens on paper have been much better than Pittsburgh has been for several years now. But we know the head-to-heads had not gone that way, right? And I mean, what happened to them in Pittsburgh back in November of last year, right? Where they turn the ball over, Lamar doesn't play well, Pittsburgh gets they make a couple plays, right? The ball bounces their way, they get a touchdown on a big play, something like that. I mean, back in 23, right? It was Kenny Pickett who, has been with how many teams now? But it was Kenny Pickett throwing a deep ball to Pickens over Marlon Humphrey's head that allowed them to win a game that the Ravens felt like the Ravens should have won by 3 touchdowns and did things to shoot themselves in the foot. So we all know what expectations are. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think they're going to beat them by 4 touchdowns because who have they played? Like, when have they looked like that this year? Okay. Browns in week 2. But even that game, go back and look at the first half of that game. Well, you looked
at what the Bills did to them the other day, and you think, well, then let's go be dominant. And I'm like, hold on, wake up. They lost by 3 touchdowns last Thursday night. So let's not just think they're going to roll the ball out and be dominant all of a sudden because the Steelers somehow look vulnerable. I don't. I'm going to remain bullish on taking points this week, and I'm going to remain bullish on this is a very, very dangerous game for the Ravens organization, as much as we're talking about booing Renegade and the Steelers and Tomlin and off the field, and he's getting fired and like all that. I don't think Hardball's getting fired. I just think it's a really dangerous game for the Ravens.
Are you picking the Ravens or the Steelers? I'm not talking about points. I don't care about that.
I think the Ravens will win the game. I just think it's going to be real nerve-wracking.
I don't disagree. I will say this, however. If there is one like if you told me right now, Luke, it's going to be a blowout, but I'm not going to tell you which team blows out the other team, I'd be inclined to say the Ravens would be, because I don't know if Pittsburgh has an offense right now that is capable of blowing anyone out, because
at this point I'm concerned about the Ravens turning the ball over 3 times and having a pick 6 and because there's been too much of that.
They haven't done that. That hasn't been a week in and week out kind of thing. But
the fumbling the first month put them at 1-5, right?
I mean, it was part of it. Sure. But on the flip side of that, yeah, you would say Pittsburgh's defense. I mean, the only thing that's been a redeeming quality about that defense is they have taken the ball away. So look, I'm not sitting here. This isn't me sitting here saying that I think the Ravens are going to blow them out, because I'll break it down very simply to you. I don't have a lot of belief in the Baltimore Ravens right now. I have even less belief in the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And that's where
succinct. That's pretty much what I was going to charge you with. Yeah. I was going to say, we suck less, right? Like that's it, right?
That's kind of what the story was of Thanksgiving weekend. Like, look, the Ravens lost by 3 scores. I'm fully acknowledging that. the Ravens had self-inflicted mistakes that they turned the ball over. They at least moved the ball. Pittsburgh scored 7 points. They didn't move the ball at all in the second half. I mean, they just, like I said, I mean, Buffalo completely stole their manhood. Cincinnati didn't steal their manhood as much as, yes, they played better than them. And the Ravens, I mean, you fumble the ball over the goal line. Your quarterback has the ball slip out of his hand at the end of the first half, and you gift them 3 points that way, right? I mean, believe me, give Cincinnati credit. They deserve to win that football game, but the Ravens gave them some help too, right? And it was one of those games, whereas like Pittsburgh just looked completely anemic and punchless in that football game. They looked helpless in that football game. So, in terms of perceiving one of those to be better than the other, I mean, I don't know. It's like, would you rather be poisoned or stabbed, right? I mean, it's like one of those types of things. But, you'd like to think, and this goes back to what Marlon Humphrey said, if we're truly as good as we think we can be, and how people have talked about us being, and how good we were in the regular season last year, how great we were in the regular season 2 years ago, go back to 19, 20, like all the regular season success that they've had. And whereas Pittsburgh, even at their best over the last few years, has been a team that's scratching and crawling just to sneak into the tournament, right? I mean, that's been them at their best. And whatever that says about that organization, I'll leave that up to people in Pittsburgh who follow them more closely than I do. But if this team is ever going to figure it out, boy, it better start Sunday, right? I mean, time's running out. You can keep talking about how great you're going to be or how great you think you are, but these last 5 games, if you don't go on some kind of roll here, I mean, I don't know. Maybe 8-9 will win the division. Maybe you don't have to be that great, but even if that scenario plays out, you got to beat Pittsburgh.
Wow, you just said 8-9 could win. I hadn't even thought about that.
I doubt it.
That's weird.
But that said, I do have a lot of conviction at this point that 9-8 could win this division.
Yeah, I have a lot of conviction of this, and I've said this several times, and I'll drop the mic on this. This isn't even the game that matters, because they're still going to have to go to Pittsburgh at the end, and they're going to have to win that game. No matter what, no matter how it looks this week, win or lose, even if they win, they're still going to have to go to Pittsburgh and win the last game. I believe that, and I believe it'll stay close enough because I believe Pittsburgh will win the games they're supposed to win, even if they lose this game. And I believe the Ravens are just – we're going to be talking about Cincinnati again next week. Even if they get their ass kicked, we're going to be talking about them and what they can do against Lamar and playing on the road and like all of that, right? And also the New England thing, watching that kid play the other night was illuminating to me.
He's really good.
He's really good. And then the Green Bay thing on the road is just such a dog trap. So they're going to lose more games. I don't know if this is the one or not. They better make sure this isn't the one. They better make sure Cincinnati isn't the one. Yeah. But they're going to lose games. I don't think they're going to win out. And if they win out, again, they're going to smell so much better.
Oh, yeah.
If they win out. They're going to smell so much better if they get to Pittsburgh and don't have to win. If Pittsburgh just awful, rolls over this week, loses to the Dolphins or whatever, and by the time you get there, they're 2 behind you, and and then you're resting Lamar.
I was going to say, if you could do that, you can rest Lamar and a couple other guys, and then we are.
Yeah, we're talking nonsense right now. Then really, with that, I think
until they do it, sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's nonsense.
I can't sit here with any great conviction and think that they're going to win.
We've done an hour of Mark Andrews and the team. We haven't even talked about Lamar and his health, and we'll see how that looks, planting the foot, throwing the football, all that cold weather this week, all that.
The ankle is what's on the injury report this week, so I love the fact that he was out there Wednesday. He trotted out to the field. You're saying, oh, okay, this is good. He had the few days extra rest, but then he's listed as limited, and he didn't speak on Wednesday because he was getting treatment, which, look, I haven't gotten any indication that there's anything more than what the last couple of weeks have been, where it's like, hey, he's going to play. He's not going to be listed with a game status, all that. But I would have liked – man, it would have been great to see him not be on the injury report at all, even just for this week.
I don't think Tomlin's up all night worried about Snoop Huntley playing this week, but I'll tell you what, Ravens might be up thinking Mason Rudolph might play some, so that certainly could be the case.
Could be. Man, it's
they've lost to him before.
Yeah, that was the end of 23.
I'm just saying.
Backups game.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Apparently, he's a huge character guy. He's just a really,
I don't know.
yeah.
I did say it to you after that game though, with the way Rodgers was with his wrist and how he couldn't take any snaps under center. I was half wondering if Mason Rudolph would be better just because of like where Rodgers is health wise right now. But we'll see.
This is an old gunfight. This one here. This is
it's a
gonna be
rock.
something.
I don't know if it's a gunfight. I mean, it feels like they're throwing pebbles at each other or something. I don't know. I mean, this is such a
Jalen Ramsey will start a fight in the third quarter. Somebody
this
gets
is
thrown
such
out.
a weird Ravens Steelers game. Oh, you'll appreciate this. I looked this up. This is obviously these teams have played, and I'll leave you with this because I know we've gone long here. These teams have played so many big December games, and obviously the stakes are very high. This is the first time since 1999 that these teams both enter a December game against each other, neither team being over 500. Like I saw that. I'm like, man, that's Tony Banks to Kadri Ismail. Like that big where Kadri had like 230 yards or whatever it
I
was.
was at that game.
Yeah,
Kicked off the
at
season.
Three Rivers.
That was our first great win for Billick, really.
No, that was late '99. Like that was the that wasn't the opener was where they shut him out was 2000. But yeah, 1999, last time these teams met in December, and neither one of them entered the day over 500. So
I think Q came out and did the show the day after that. I'm pretty sure he did.
Well, I mean, that was a monster game for him. I mean, that was his career renaissance. He was just kind of he was Rocket's brother at that point in time.
While we're on that, I put Purple Rain, all of the old conversations about and not just Purple Rain the book, but everybody from that era. Tony Saragusa, all the conversations with Goose and Jack Del Rio and Mike Smith and anybody associated with the team who's ever done the show. Jamie Sharper, Kim Airy, it's Mike Flynn. It's all in there. Lots of storytelling. Brandon Stokely and John Ogg. It's all in there. Ray Lewis and Rod Woodson. It's all in there. So they're being honored this week, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with it. I didn't even know it. Marvin said it to me in the segment. I was doing a piece with Marvin. Marvin's like, I'm coming in this week, and we're getting crab cakes. I'm like, what? Because he's a Coco's man. Marvin is. So, but he doesn't want Coco's. He said, I can get Coco's shipped. He wants crabs. So I'm taking him to Costas.
There you
go. So it's good. It's a good thing I'm connected. But this is going to be a fun weekend, and I want everybody to enjoy it if you're into such things. And if you want to read Purple Rain, it's all up on Baltimore Positive. If you have a copy, come say hello. I'm doing 6 shows through the holidays. We're going to be at Fadley's on Wednesday, Deep Pasquale's on Thursday, Honey's and Alethorpe on Friday. We're going to be at Costas on the 18th. We're going to be at Gertrude's on the 19th, and we're going to be at Planet Fitness in Timonium. Yes, it's open. Yes, I'm bringing a crab cake over from Costas over to Planet Fitness on the 21st to get people ready to get in shape for 2026. I'm just getting used to writing 2025 on my checks. I'm making that up. I don't have checks anymore. But it was always weird. It's always weird when a year changes. And it's always weird when Pittsburgh's in town and they're both 6-6. And we're honoring the Super Bowl 35 champions as it's my team. That was my team. We should all have a team. That was my team. So my boys are all back in town this weekend, and the greatest defense ever. Marvin always cringes when I say that to him, but it's true because I believe it. It's Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.